Hey everybody, thank you for joining our live today and for being patient with us because I had some issues with OBS, which is the system that we film our show on and we do our lives on Tuesday, and I was very frustrated. I am not an expert when it comes to technology, and I have had to watch a lot of tutorials and learn. But I hope everybody is doing well. I am here, as many of you know, in Arizona, in Tucson, Arizona, at my grandparents' house with my family. We are staying inside, taking care of each other. Hope you and your loved ones are well. Before I get to it, I just want to give a shout out to my council member, Konstantinidis. He is our incredible council member in Astoria, Queens, and he is running for borough president of Queens. And that election, we don't even know when it's going to be. It was supposed to be a special election, but not sure when that's going to happen now. But he has been struggling the last few weeks, I think. So we just want to make sure we send our love to him and that he gets better soon. I didn't know if I wanted to talk about this because I think it's really important right now that we as a movement unify, and I want to be focusing on what we can do specifically and locally to challenge the neoliberal infrastructure. But this one got under my skin today, and I had to think about whether or not I wanted to discuss it. But I think partly it got under my skin because I am part of an amazing organization of women called Matriarch, and Matriarch is dedicated to supporting and helping build the infrastructure for progressive working class women running for Congress. I actually just got off of a call with some of the campaign managers and candidates and our team and board member and a couple board members with these candidates that Matriarch endorsed this cycle. I'm hoping, next cycle we'll have more capacity to endorse even more incredible women, and we'll have more of a support system. But we're a new organization. So this means a lot to me. I've run for office. Everybody who is involved has somehow been involved in races where they've either run for office as working class progressive women, or they've been in office, or they've worked on races. And, it takes a lot of courage to run for office. It takes an extraordinary amount of courage to be a progressive running against somebody in the establishment and saying, I am not taking corporate money. I am running on the most progressive platform, and especially in districts where there aren't probably, the progressive ecosystem may not be as large. So Elizabeth Warren announced she was endorsing some women today, and I think it's important for her to use her platform. But I was upset, frankly, that she didn't see any of the candidates that Matriarch has endorsed. I mean, we have a coalition in Matriarch of people who have supported Warren and Bernie. A lot of them support Bernie. We didn't make the presidential race an issue because we wanted to focus on these candidates and not get distracted. And I don't know. I mean, some of the candidates are more progressive. You have Candace Valenzuela and Kara Eastman. But, for the most part, I think Candace Valenzuela is, endorsed by Emily's List. I believe Kara Eastman is as well in Nebraska. I just think that there could have been other options or maybe more. I mean, I don't, it's not like she's hurting with money. It's not like it hurts her to endorse more women. Listen, I'm happy that she's supporting progressive women, or she's supporting women, but she could have gone more progressive. And I think with Matriarch, we work very hard to assess the districts and the candidates. And frankly, we had a lot of nominations, and so many of the women that were nominated were incredible. And it was hard. It was a very hard choice for us as a political committee. And we all discussed whether or not, do we want to focus on candidates that we think can win or not win. But we really believe that, in particular, progressives, it takes a woman 3 times on average to run and win. 3 times. I'm on number 2. 3 times to run and win. That's the average. And they usually have to get asked multiple times before it even registers for them. Now add to it you're a progressive and you're running against the establishment, you have a whole other slate of challenges. And progressives don't have the infrastructure out there to support candidates. We don't have a lot of experience because the Democratic Party had, I've talked about this over and over again, but the Democratic Party just pulled away from building up state parties, and unions were under attack, so we don't have that infrastructure. We don't have the flow. And I think flow from the ground up. We don't have candidates, at the rate that they need to, getting elected early and rising up through the pipeline. And we also don't have campaign managers and finance chairs and field directors who've worked all over the country. And we're getting better, definitely getting better. But it's a challenge for a lot of folks. So for someone like Elizabeth Warren to kind of go with the safe picks, even the ones that are more progressive are pretty safe, I don't know if that, I think endorsements are great, but I don't know if it helps them as much as they need. And I think we have to look at endorsements a little bit different. If you are a name, your power, right? Your power is actually stronger when you support people who need you more. Does that make sense? So what I love is like Ro Khanna, for instance. He sees a candidate, he assesses the race, he looks at the candidates, but he courageously says, I'm going to endorse this candidate before anybody else does. And that first endorsement can lead to multiple other endorsements and to organizations and fundraising. It can make a huge difference. Now, if you're an Elizabeth Warren, it can change your race drastically. If you're Bernie, if you're AOC, your race is a whole different type of race. So I think we should pressure more of our electeds not to wait until the race looks winnable, because then you're no different than Emily's List or these other organizations who say you have to raise $200,000 before we look at you. Candidates need that support. Progressive, working class candidates need that early support because it helps them raise the money that they're already struggling with. And that's something that we are dedicated to at Matriarch. I just got off this call and I was so impressed and inspired by, the candidates and the campaigns who are hustling super hard to basically make do in the era of COVID. So many of them didn't budget having to do digital. So many of them had to cut their volunteer programs because there were no doors to knock on anymore. It's tough to run for office, and it's going to be very hard for a lot of these candidates to run during COVID because, so many of them are running against well-funded elected officials and establishment folks who can just buy an ad and put it on TV. They can just buy tons of digital. Kylie, thank you so much for this super chat, love. Very, very grateful. If anybody has any questions, click on that super chat. I am learning this thing. I'm doing it on my phone today. This is a new... This is a whole new world for me right now. So I appreciate all your love and patience as I've been building this show during COVID, and we got monetized during COVID, which is amazing, but it definitely has had an effect on how we run the show, because now we have things like Superchat, and we're using OBS to do live streams, and I don't have Dorsey, our amazing producer, in studio with me. It's just me calling him up and saying, Dorsey, what's going on? And it's, sometimes late at night. You'll wait until I'm indoors. It's getting hot here, actually. I might have to move indoors. So listen, I think the frustration with Warren is this is a moment where we should probably be, as progressives, thinking super strategically and locally. And what I mean by that is start to power map, and I'm going to talk about this in my opening of my show. If you have a chance to watch it, it should be up tomorrow. But it's all about how power works. And we released a few clips early talking about power, but my opening monologue is really like how we have to examine power, we have to power map and pick our battles. I don't think picking a battle with Elizabeth Warren right now is really worth it. I'm only frustrated with this specific aspect, which is Warren could be doing so much more with her platform. Actually, everybody could be. Anybody on the progressive side who has a platform and can take risks because they're popular can do so much when they endorse early. I want to get to that question. Roger Martin, when Biden loses to Trump, is that when we can break away from the DNC and start a true progressive party? Listen, I think we have to be really honest with ourselves about this. That's like a 40-year fight. I say that because you have to get a ballot line in every state. Every state has different state laws, and so many state legislatures are controlled by Republicans because of gerrymandering and the Democrats, zapping resources away from state parties. On top of that, we have to keep in mind also that like Bernie's support was diverse. He actually, yes, he had independents and he had leftists, but I think we have to keep in mind that like he does have a lot of Democrats. He has a lot of progressive-leaning Democrats. And I think there are people in the Democratic Party, like half of it, if you can believe it, in actual membership, who lean fairly progressive and reform. I mean, they wanted to support, I believe Keith Ellison won. I think that there were some shenanigans played when I was there, and no one, the problem is nobody ever wants to speak up because they're in that ecosystem. So I, at this point, don't think I'm going to be a delegate. I don't think I'm going to be a DNC member anytime soon. I've learned a lot through the process, but I don't see an alternative right now, and that is my honest assessment. It is probably not where we should focus our energy, and we're probably not going to get everybody on board to focus on a third party. Does that make sense? You'd have to basically take like half the Democratic Party with you, and then even then, probably give more power to Republicans. So we have to think about these dynamics. My opening tomorrow, I'm teasing it out really hard right now. You'll see I discuss how demographics are working to our advantage, but only if we maintain solidarity. So snake emojis might make us feel great, and much love to Michael Brooks, who has definitely been warning us about dividing the left. But at this point, I don't really see what utility it is. We're not running in a primary anymore. We have to be thinking about the future. We shouldn't be looking backward anymore. I know that's really hard to say, right? But I truly believe that for us to keep this momentum, we can't be fighting with ourselves. We can't be fighting with Warren people. It only gives more power to, frankly, the Republicans and Biden. And I think in the neoliberals. So they laugh at us when we're all fighting with each other, when we're pointing fingers at each other. And I think we have to expand the circle, not divide the circle. And if we're not expanding the circle, we're dividing the circle. Does that make sense? I have a question here. It's really right out here. The breaker of walls. I love that. What about Andrew Cuomo? No, he's not the best person. Outing Mitch McConnell on how red states fed off blue states' tax income. Someone finally said it. Yeah, he did say it. But what he left out is that Andrew Cuomo, how do I get rid of that? Gaslighting. How am I gaslighting, guys? I'm saying we got to focus. We have to have a plan. You know why they win? They focus. They have 30-year plans. The neoliberals, they realize that in order for the wealthy to take control of the Democratic Party, they had to figure out how to suppress the working people. And this is not a new tactic. This is something that union busters have been doing. Union buster consultants have gone into unions and divided everybody up based on race and ethnicity. This is the tactic. So if we're fighting with each other because the internet makes it so easy to just feel emotional about every single thing that happens, and I'm just as guilty of this, right? Then they're laughing at us. Maybe if you have the ability right now to take time and think about, what vulnerabilities the neoliberals have locally, right? There are a lot of weak candidates, weak elected officials who've never seen any sort of sunlight on them, who've never been challenged. They've never been challenged from the left. They've tried to make themselves out to be leftists. I think that's important. If you can help out any of these candidates that are running, challenging the establishment, that's important. If you don't want to run, find out who's your DNC member, who's going to be going to the convention if we still have one, who are, if there are any big donors in your community, If anybody works for the Republicans. So to go back to that question about Andrew Cuomo, sure, Andrew Cuomo's very good at every once in a while criticizing some sort of policy from the Republicans, and especially something that nobody ever says. And he did call out some Democrats for falling in line with Mitch McConnell, but he can do that because he's not in the Senate. And pot calling the kettle black. Come on, Andrew. Andrew created the IDC so he could have a front group, so he could still have he has a better relationship with Republicans than Democrats in our state. Let's just leave that there. Andrew Cuomo has a better relationship, has cut more deals with Republicans than he has with Democrats. He's turned on Democrats. He's gone to war with Democrats, whether it's Carl Hastie of the Assembly, who's not like some sort of progressive champion. He's not an enemy, but he's not a progressive champion. Or Michael Gianaris in the Senate. I mean, it's ridiculous that he is still getting away with this. It's not ridiculous. It's his track record. He is actually very good at gaslighting. So I don't buy anything Andrew Cuomo says. Always take a second and say, what's his game? He's great at distracting people. He's great at putting out headlines. He's great at getting media. Of course, while COVID is taking place in New York, he's able to go on CNN every night and talk to his brother. We all know this. But meanwhile, not only was he slashing the budget is usually a huge item of it's very contentious between all the parties in Albany, and it does get a lot of attention in New York. But not this year because of COVID. So, and he used to use the IDC to get away with his budget because he believes in balancing budgets because he's Clintonian. He worked in the Clinton administration. And I think his jam right now is I honestly think he's trying to angle himself as a VP contender. The problem is that, of course, Joe Biden announced that he would like a woman to be his vice president. I think some people say that Cuomo wants to be on the cabinet. He's been on a cabinet. Cuomo wants attention. Cuomo's not going to go back on a cabinet where he doesn't get all the attention. He would probably stick around for another 4 years in New York because, of course, this is New York. Like, it's the center of the media universe. Things relate to New York so quickly. COVID is a perfect example of this. I don't understand why anyone thinks he would want to be out of the limelight, especially if he plans to run for president in 2024. This is typical Andrew Cuomo. So, yeah, what other questions do we have here? Do you guys get what I'm saying about Elizabeth Warren? It's not worth picking these fights with her because she's not a power broker in any of this. I think what's frustrating to me is that she's not out there supporting women who really need it early on, and when her endorsement can shift the entire structure of the race. One endorsement, one AOC swooping in can help people with fundraising, getting press, other endorsements, and then suddenly you have a coalition of organizations out there supporting candidates. And we've seen that with a lot of our matriarch candidates. Okay, we have some questions coming in here. We have Michael Petty. Why does the Biden campaign think shaming people into voting voting for him will work? I don't know if it's the Biden people or if it's just like people who support Biden, powerful people who support Biden. Vote shaming never works. I think it's a horrible strategy. It's never worked. I didn't like it when Hillary Clinton did it. I think, again, they want to fire us up. I actually think that there are folks who are provocateurs, and they're there to pick fights with us so we get angry and we're just constantly shouting at them rather than organizing. Now, I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive. You can do both. But I do think at this moment versus during the campaign or other moments, maybe even in 2016 or in between, because we don't have Bernie now, we have to really actively take note of which fights we're picking because we don't want to drain our energy. We don't want to feel defeated all the time. So why are we picking these fights? Why are we engaging on Twitter with these people? Keep in mind there are even people on the left too who make money off of this. They like to be retweeted. They like to see themselves in the press. They may mean well and may have the same right values. They may not even know they're consciously doing it. But I do think it's important now, for all of us to think long term. This is going to be a long fight. Okay, we had another question. I live in Boston, Mass, so the fact that Warren didn't endorse Ayanna ain't a good look. I agree. I thought Warren was done before, but she might be done now. Yeah, especially after Ayanna endorsed Warren. Now, maybe she's endorsing people who are not incumbents. Maybe that's it. But of course it would help Ayanna to have her senator endorse her. It would help her, with fundraising. And someone like Rashida Tlaib, she's being challenged right now. I don't know if a Warren endorsement would actually help her. Am I on the desert or the beach? Well, technically this is a beach. There's just no water. That's a dad joke. That is my father's joke. I'm in Tucson. I'm at my grandparents' house. I think that, again, candidates who do not have the exposure, do not have the press, do not have the endorsements, it is so important that we endorse those candidates who are running smart campaigns, especially, who have thought about their campaigns, have real potential. We endorse them earlier because it gives them the opportunity to build those coalitions and raise the money and get the press when one person comes in. And major shout out to Ro Khanna, because Congressman Khanna is very good at that. And he's always talking about building the progressive base in Congress. I mean, you have a progressive caucus, but I think he really wants a solidarity caucus because you can't get anything done. You can propose all the bills you want all day long, but if you don't have people to sign on to it and fight for it, it ain't going nowhere. It's definitely not going anywhere in the Senate. So we need more Ro Khanna strategies. And I think for us as progressives, we should pressure our progressive leaders who may not think of power that way. But it doesn't mean you endorse everybody, but when you endorse, it makes a huge difference. Someone like Samelis Lopez, I mean, I say this because her race is coming up in June. Matriarch endorsed her. She's in a crowded primary in New York, and it's very hard to get press because she's running against like 9,000 candidates. And AOC did endorse her, and it got her a lot of press. DSA endorsed her. The other thing I want to say about DSA, I think that they need to shorten their process, and it needs to be a little bit different. I don't know how we do that. Maybe I get involved a little bit more electorally and bring this up, or I don't know, maybe somebody else who wants to take that fight on does so. But we've been really thoughtful about our endorsement process at Matriarch because so many of us have run for office before, and we just thought, having a candidate write these essays, I'm not saying DSA, a lot of organizations do this, it takes a lot of time out of the candidate's schedule. And if you don't have money and if you don't have a staff and you're already running an uphill battle, I think my DSA, I loved filling it out, just as an exercise, but I think it was like 40 pages. I'm not kidding you. Because I had long answers. Not everybody has time for that. And some of them are, some of these questionnaires are really long. So think about it from a perspective of a candidate, a grassroots candidate too. What kind of process can we put together as an organization to make sure that the candidate sticks to their values, doesn't, once they get endorsed or once they get in office, suddenly sell out? What happens when they sell out? What happens? Do they lose the endorsement? Does the organization say, what, we believed in this person, they signed a pledge, and then they violated it? I rarely ever see that. Do they retract endorsements? We do that at Matriarch. We haven't done it yet, but I'm saying we tell our candidates that you have gotten an endorsement and somebody else could have had that spot and that support. And so we want to make sure that when we endorse you, you stand with your everything that you filled out in the questionnaire and the values that you're running on. I think that means a lot. So organizations, I think that vetting is really important too. Why are these candidates running? Who are they running against? So can you talk more about Pelosi? Oh my gosh, it's so bright out here. Pelosi and her bypassing the House. I am not sure I understand the whole remote voting situation. I don't know either. I'm gonna actually get back to you on that. Like I've never been a Hill reporter, so sometimes the mini processes confuse me. So anywho, I love you all. I'm going to do another one of these soon with OBS when it's a little bit easier because it just got very hot out here. It's the desert. Meanwhile, it snowed in New York today. Nomiki, you should listen to Kaya's Apothecary. Wait on YouTube since you're in the desert could help you chill. Sure. Love it. I'm down. We'll have a show up this week, actually. Yeah, I think the show will be up this weekend. We did back-to-back shows, so I can't even keep track. I had a day where I just jammed out some interviews, and then I had to put together some monologues, and you'll have some important content coming soon. But make sure to share, click like, subscribe, and if you're not already a patron on Patreon, and if you can do so, please join us on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. We are killing it on there. I'm saying that because, we're just pushing out content. I'm probably going to be doing a lot more in coming weeks because I took a few days to just sit in the studio and called everybody I know. If you have suggestions for people to interview or ideas or topics, please let me know. We do talk to our patrons a lot about this. It's important to me. I've taken a lot of recommendations and reached out to folks. But it's the lifeblood of our organization. Do I think that Morgan Harper will win her race? Matriarch endorsed her. We sure hope so. It's hard to tell with everybody. I'm going to be honest with you right now. I think it's very hard to tell with COVID. Campaigns are not running. They're not able to knock on doors. And for progressives, it's so important that you're able to knock on doors. Phone calls are important, but the voter contact is the most important part of a campaign, especially GOTV. And they've changed the election date already. I think it's very hard to poll right now. And I think, depending on your vote by mail situation, if they're mailing you ballots or they're mailing you forms to fill out ballots, a lot of these races are changing by the day. And it's very difficult for candidates that don't have massive amounts of funds or are part of the establishment. And in states where the Democratic establishment is tied to the infrastructure, the electoral infrastructure, it's a big issue. What are your thoughts on the chances of Jamal Bowman upsetting Engel? I think same scenario. New York is tough because we don't really know. I mean, at this very moment, they're still deciding how they're going to issue absentee ballots to people, whether they're going to mail them directly to you or you fill out a form. And then you send that in, and then they send you the absentee. I mean, that race is June 23rd. Some states have early voting that's starting, vote by mail already. Like Georgia, I think, started today or yesterday. So, with New York, so much of it is field. So I can't gauge it. I really can't. Normally, I would have better predictions. If it was a typical race, I'd say, yeah, I think he's going to do a great job. But there's so many factors that nobody knows, and anybody who says they know doesn't know. They're lying to you. But I hope. So if you can, make phone calls for these folks. I mean, Morgan Harper, she's got a race coming up. Nabila Islam in Georgia. Definitely want to jump in on that one. Cori Bush, our sister, Cori Bush, she is, she's been sick for the last few weeks, and we believe she had COVID, so she needs all of our love. Definitely help her out. Melanie DeRigo in Long Island is running against Tom Suozzi. She's getting death threats right now. Definitely want to help her out. And Samalise Lopez, who's running in the Bronx. It's also a June 23rd race. So I'm happy they've all been featured on our show. We're on the Nomiki Show. We're going to probably feature a couple of more. I think Samalise is going to be up next week, so you can learn a little bit about her. But it's very hard to tell. I think the establishment has the upper hand in this scenario just because it does cost so much money to buy media, and that's what they're going to be doing with the money that they have. And depending on the state, Cuomo's not making it easy for folks. All right, much love. I'm going to finish my kombucha out here in the sun. The sun's not setting yet, but in the sunlight, and then I'm going to go back in and do another monologue for y'all. Mwah. Love you. Stay safe. Stop being so... Oh, you're very sweet. Fine. I'll try. It's the lighting. Take care, guys.